My father announced my retirement in front of 180 clients. I was 43. He thanked me for years of loyal service, handed my office keys to my stepbrother, and displayed a photograph of a beach chair beneath the words, "Enjoy the quiet life, Andrew." People laughed because they thought I had agreed. I had not. Then Margaret Sloan, our largest client, stood from the front table. "If Andrew is retiring," she said, "so am I." My father smiled uncertainly. "Retiring from what, Margaret?" "From this firm." 11 other clients stood with her. By midnight, Vail Private Advisory had received termination notices covering $1.4 billion in assets. Dad called me from the empty ballroom. "What did you tell them?" I looked at the retirement watch he had forced onto my wrist. The truth. What truth? That you replaced the person they trusted before asking whether their trust belonged to you. My name is Andrew Vail. I spent 18 years helping wealthy families protect money from people who sounded more confident than they were. Eventually, I learned that description included my own family. Vail Private Advisory occupied 3 floors of a glass building overlooking Boston Harbor. My father, Harrison Vail, founded the firm 31 years earlier. He began with 6 clients, 1 receptionist, and a promise that no family would ever become merely an account number. By the time he announced my retirement, we advised on almost $4 billion. Dad was 68, silver-haired, disciplined, and still able to remember the name of a client's first dog. He believed relationships were the foundation of wealth management. He also believed every relationship ultimately belonged to the man whose name was on the building. My stepmother Vivian directed communications. She had been a television producer before marrying Dad. Vivian understood that facts arrived slowly, while a polished explanation could reach the entire room in 30 seconds. Her son Colin Mercer joined Vail Private Advisory 9 years earlier. Colin was 37, charming, ambitious, and smarter than people realized. He never made reckless decisions without first creating someone else who could be blamed for them. He wanted to become chief executive before Dad retired. His weakness was impatience. He could imitate trust, but he could not tolerate the time required to earn it. Elena Park served as chief compliance officer. Elena was precise, cautious, and tired of being told that family discussions did not require documentation. She wanted to protect the firm. Her weakness was that she had 2 children in private school and a mortgage large enough to make courage expensive. Margaret Sloan was 74 and controlled a family manufacturing fortune. She had become my client after her husband died. Dr. Samir Patel had sold a medical device company and spent most meetings asking what could go wrong. Those 2 clients understood me better than my family did. Then there was me. My title was Senior Managing Partner and Director of Family Risk. Dad called me the careful son. Colin called me the human emergency brake. I managed clients during divorces, deaths, lawsuits, business sales, kidnappings, tax investigations, family conflicts, and market crashes. I was not the person clients called when returns were impressive. I was the person they called when impressive returns stopped feeling safe. The first real war began with a private investment fund called North Harbor Opportunity Partners. Colin wanted our clients to invest $600 million into it. North Harbor promised 14% annual returns through luxury apartment developments in Florida and Texas. The presentation was beautiful. Photographs of rooftop pools, projected rent growth, a former professional athlete as brand ambassador. A slide showing that institutional investors had already committed $2 billion. Colin presented it during the Monday investment meeting. "This is how Vail moves into the next generation," he said. Dad nodded approvingly. I raised my hand. "Who controls North Harbor?" Colin smiled. "The investment committee reviewed management." That wasn't my question. A few people shifted in their chairs. Colin clicked to the management slide. Experienced real estate operators, The fund is registered through 3 Delaware entities. Who owns the general partner? Why does that matter? Because the ownership schedule is blank. Vivian sighed from the far end of the table. Andrew must, every opportunity, begin with suspicion. Yes, Dad frowned. Answer him, Colin. Colin's jaw tightened. The ownership structure is being finalized. You're asking clients to commit before ownership is finalized. The principles are known. To whom? To leadership. I'm leadership. Colin laughed. You manage relationships. I manage risk. Exactly. You explain why everything might fail after other people create growth. I placed my report on the table. North Harbor's appraisals were prepared by a firm owned by the fund sponsor's brother. The room went silent. I continued. 3 developments listed as 70% leased are still under construction. The institutional commitment includes a cancellation clause that expires before our client's money becomes refundable. Dad looked at Colin. Is that accurate? Colin answered smoothly. Andrew is presenting preliminary diligence as final fact. The buildings are not occupied. They are pre-leased. To whom? Corporate tenants. Which companies? He looked toward Elena. Compliance has the file. Elena lowered her eyes. That told me she did not. Dad rubbed his forehead. We are not rejecting a major opportunity because Andrew found incomplete paperwork. I'm not asking you to reject it. I'm asking you not to sell it to clients until the ownership leases and appraisals are verified. Colin leaned forward. Delay kills deals. So does fraud. Vivian's expression changed. There were words she hated hearing in rooms with glass walls. She said quietly, "That is an irresponsible accusation. It is a risk category. No, it is how reputations are destroyed." Dad ended the meeting. North Harbor was delayed. By lunchtime, the story had changed. Colin told advisors I had blocked the firm's largest opportunity because I was afraid of losing influence. Vivian sent an internal message. Growth requires courage. Caution matters, but fear should never become a substitute for leadership. No name appeared. Everyone knew. A junior advisor asked whether I was planning to leave. Another asked whether I opposed every investment Colin created. 2 longtime employees stopped copying me on strategy emails. Then, one of North Harbor's principals called Dad directly. He said I had insulted the fund and threatened the relationship. Dad called me into his office. You spoke to North Harbor number. They say you contacted an investor and called the fund fraudulent. I did not. Colin says you threatened to report it. I said the documents required verification. Vivian sat beside Dad. She looked wounded. Why can't you admit that your tone caused damage? Because my tone did not call the investor. Someone did. Then investigate who? Dad looked out over the harbor. Apologized to Colin. For what? For undermining him. I found conflicts he did not disclose. You humiliated him in front of the committee. I asked questions in an investment meeting. Vivian's eyes filled. You cannot understand what it is like for Colin to work beneath a brother who expects him to fail. I don't expect him to fail. You prepare for it. That is my job. She whispered. You make cruelty sound professional. Dad suspended me from new product review for 60 days. Colin received authority to complete North Harbor's due diligence. 3 weeks later, a business publication reported that one of North Harbor's developments had fabricated lease commitments. Colin withdrew the fund from consideration. He announced the decision in a company email. After extensive executive review, Vail Private Advisory has elected not to proceed with North Harbor. My name was not mentioned. When I confronted him, he smiled. You wanted the fund stopped. It stopped. You told everyone I was afraid. Do you need a medal? I need accurate records. There's your problem. What? You think being right entitles you to be loved. The Second War began with Margaret Sloan's charitable trust. Margaret planned to transfer $25 million into a foundation supporting vocational education. She asked me to structure the investment policy conservatively. No exciting surprises, she said. That is my favorite kind of instruction. Colin attended the meeting without being invited. Dad had told him to learn the relationship. Margaret looked at him. Who are you, Colin Mercer? I oversee next generation strategy. She looked at me. Is this a next generation problem? No. Colin laughed. Margaret did not. After the meeting, he said, "You could help clients feel welcome." She was direct. She was rude. She has been direct for 74 years. She controls $700 million. That does not make her personality ours to redesign. 2 days later, Margaret called me. Why did you move $5 million? I didn't. My portal shows a pending commitment to Stonebridge Credit Fund. I opened her account. The commitment existed. Stonebridge was a private credit fund Colin had promoted. Do not approve. Anything I said. I wasn't planning to. The authorization form contained Margaret's electronic signature. It also contained mine. Neither was genuine. I called Elena. Preserve the Stonebridge submission. Her voice dropped. What happened? Margaret and I did not sign. Do you believe someone copied the signatures? I believe the portal authentication will tell us. Colin entered my office before Elena finished preserving the record. He closed the door. Why are you alarming Margaret? Who submitted the Stonebridge commitment? She discussed credit exposure. She rejected it. She said she wanted stable income. That is not authorization. He sat in the chair across from me. The allocation is appropriate. For her personal portfolio, perhaps, not her charitable foundation. It's $5 million out of 25. She specifically requested liquidity. The fund has quarterly redemptions, subject to suspension. He smiled. You always find the footnote that ruins lunch. Did you submit the form? I facilitated it, using our signatures. Your approval was inferred. My signature was copied. His expression remained calm. You approve similar allocations every week. That is not consent. Do you understand what happens if Margaret believes we mishandled her account? Yes. She leaves. Yes. So why are you frightening her? I stared at him. You committed her money without permission, and you think my notification is the danger? He leaned forward. Fix it quietly. How? Tell her a draft instruction entered the portal accidentally. That isn't what happened. It becomes what happened if everyone survives it. I reported the unauthorized submission to Elena. Elena reversed the commitment before money transferred. Then Vivian acted. A complaint appeared in the firm's ethics mailbox. It claimed I had pressured Margaret into creating the charitable foundation because I expected a paid trustee role. The complaint included selective emails. One message from me said, I would be honored to continue assisting after the foundation launches. The next line had been removed. The full email said, I would be honored to continue assisting after the foundation launches, but I cannot serve as trustee or accept separate compensation under our conflict policy. The edited version went to Dad and the board. Vivian told advisors that I was under internal review. Colin told Margaret I had become emotionally attached to her account. Margaret called me furious. Are you trying to become trustee? No. Your compliance officer says there is a complaint. I know. Did you write that you would be honored to continue? Yes. She went silent. I emailed the full message. 5 minutes later, she called again. They cut off the sentence. Yes. Who? I don't know yet. Do you suspect? Yes. Then why don't you say the name? Because suspicion is not evidence. Margaret's voice softened. That is why I trust you. The board still placed me on administrative leave. Clients saw a notice saying I was temporarily unavailable. Colin took over my relationships. Vivian told staff I was exhausted and needed rest. A photograph appeared online showing me leaving the building with a cardboard file box. The caption from an anonymous financial industry account said, Vail founder's son removed during conflict investigation. Friends stopped returning calls. An attorney I had worked with for 10 years asked whether I had targeted elderly clients. My father did not defend me publicly. He said silence protected the firm. It protected everyone except me. The secret arrived through Elena. She met me in a parking garage after dark. I found the Stonebridge submission log. Whose device? Colin's assistant's computer. User Colin. Signature files. Uploaded from Vivian's communications drive. I stared at her. Why would Vivian have my signature? She keeps scanned documents for media and event releases. What about Margaret's? From last year's gala authorization. Elena handed me printed logs. Then she said, "There's more." Stonebridge paid placement bonuses after client commitments reached $50 million. Colin was $8 million short. Margaret's $5 million and 3 smaller unauthorized commitments pushed him above the threshold. The bonus was $900,000. Did Dad know? I don't know. Did compliance approve the compensation? No. Why didn't you stop it? Her eyes filled. Because Colin told me Dad had approved an exception. Did you ask Dad? No. Why? She looked away. I was afraid. I wanted to blame her. Instead, I asked, "Are the records preserved?" Yes. Does Colin know? Not yet. I gave Elena a copy of my attorney's contact information. Do not confront him alone. My attorney, Rachel Monroe, advised patience. Your father and Colin think you are defending your job, she said. Let them make the next decision. What decision? How far they are willing to go once they believe you are isolated. They went further than I expected. The third war involved Dr. Samir Patel's family office. Samir had sold his company for $900 million. He hated publicity. Colin wanted him in a new co-investment vehicle that would give Vail Private Advisory influence over a Boston biotech development. Samir refused. I sold one medical company, he told me. I do not need to purchase another through a side door. I documented his refusal. A week later, a newspaper reported that Vail Private Advisory had secured support from a prominent healthcare entrepreneur. Samir called me. Did Colin use my name? The article does not name you. Everyone in Boston knows who they mean. I'll correct it. You are on leave. I'll preserve it. Colin called 5 minutes later. Samir is overreacting. You implied he supported the project. He expressed interest. He said no. He asked questions. That is not interest. He likes you, Andrew. He will forgive the wording. He should not have to. Colin lowered his voice. You are damaging another relationship. No, I am refusing to lie to him. That afternoon, Samir received an email from my address. It said, You are making this unnecessarily difficult. Colin is trying to protect your access to future opportunities. I had not sent it. Samir forwarded it to me with one sentence. Is this how your family plans to retire you? The email header showed it had originated from a marketing automation account controlled by Vivian's team. Someone had copied my email signature. Rachel told me not to respond emotionally, so I sent Samir a sworn statement confirming the email was false. Then I gave him the firm's official complaint process. He filed a complaint. Vivian called an emergency family meeting at Dad's house. She cried before I sat down. This has become dangerous. For whom, I asked. For the firm? For Harrison? For all of us. Colin placed the forged email on the table. You sent this. No. It has your name. The server records show where it came from. Dad looked at me. Why would Vivian's team send it? To make Samir believe I had turned against him. Vivian stood. That is insane. Then release the automation logs. You are accusing my staff of a crime. I'm asking for data. Dad slammed his palm onto the table. Stop. The room went silent. He pointed at me. Every client conflict now includes you. Because they are my clients. They are Vail clients. They are people. Do not lecture me about relationships. Then stop allowing Colin to manufacture consent. Colin smiled coldly. There it is. You think they belong to you. No. You think they will follow you anywhere. I have never asked them to. But you believe it. Dad looked exhausted. Andrew, you need to step away. I am already on leave. Permanently. Vivian sat down slowly. Colin avoided looking surprised. They had rehearsed this. Dad continued. We will announce your retirement at the Founders' Dinner next month. I'm 43. We'll call it an early retirement. I am not retiring. You need rest. I need access to the records used under my name. Your attorney can discuss records later. You want me to accept a false public story. Dad's voice softened. I want to protect your dignity. No. You want to control the reason I disappear. Vivian began crying. Why must everything sound cruel when you say it? Because cruelty becomes clearer without music underneath it. Dad stood. The decision is final. I could have filed suit immediately. Rachel advised against it. Let them announce it, she said. Why? Because clients have contractual rights triggered by a key advisor change. Most of my clients had negotiated key person clauses after a merger scare years earlier. If I stopped managing their relationships, the firm had to notify them formally. They could terminate without penalties. Dad knew the clauses existed. He believed the clients would remain because of the Veil name. I informed Elena in writing that I did not consent to retirement. Then I waited. The Founders' Dinner took place at a hotel overlooking the harbor. 180 clients attended. Dad spoke about legacy. Vivian showed a film about the firm's history. Colin appeared in conference rooms on private jets and beside investment properties. I appeared mostly in photographs from family picnics. The message was subtle. Colin was the future. I was the son. After dessert, Dad called me to the stage. He smiled as if he were giving me a gift. Andrew has decided that 18 years of service are enough. I remained beside him. Guests applauded. He continued. He has guided families through difficult moments, and now he is ready for a quieter life. A photograph of a beach chair appeared. Enjoy the quiet life, Andrew. People laughed. Vivian approached with a gold watch. Colin carried a box containing my office keys, nameplate, and framed photograph of Mom. Dad fastened the watch around my wrist. Say a few words. I took the microphone. Did I choose to retire? The room quieted. Dad's smile tightened. Andrew, this is your celebration. That wasn't my question. Vivian whispered, please don't make this uncomfortable. I looked at Dad. Am I retiring voluntarily? He lowered his voice. You are leaving the firm, effective tonight. Yes. Will Colin manage my clients? Yes. Is that the firm's final decision? Dad glanced toward the tables. Then he raised his chin. Yes. I nodded. Thank you for clarifying. Margaret Sloane stood. If Andrew is retiring, so am I. Dad laughed uncertainly. Retiring from what, Margaret? From this firm. Samir stood next. Please consider this my formal notice as well. Then the Navarro family representative rose. Then the Callahan Trust. Then the Whitmore Foundation. 11 clients stood during the first minute. Others remained seated but opened their phones. Dad stared at me. What did you tell them? Nothing about tonight, Margaret answered for me. He did not need to. She looked toward Colin. You submitted an investment under my name without permission. Whispers spread through the ballroom. Colin said, that matter was corrected. Quietly, Margaret replied, after Andrew found it. Samir raised his voice. Your communications team sent a false email using Andrew's identity. Vivian stepped forward. That is under investigation. Samir looked at her. By the people who sent it? Dad reached for the microphone. This is not the forum. Margaret laughed once. You selected the forum when you announced a management change before notifying the clients whose contracts require notice. Elena entered through the side doors with two attorneys. She had resigned that afternoon. She carried the preserved audit logs. Dad's face went pale. "Elena, what are you doing?" "My job," she said, "without your permission this time." By midnight, termination notices covered $1.4 billion. Not every client left. Enough did. Colin called me from the ballroom after everyone was gone. "You destroyed Dad." "No. You coordinated a walkout." "I did not." "You expect me to believe 11 clients stood by coincidence?" "They knew their contractual rights." "Because you told them." "Their attorneys knew." "You wanted the firm." "I wanted my name removed from false documents." "You could have handled this privately." "We tried private." He hung up. The firm sued me 2 days later. The complaint accused me of client solicitation, trade secret theft, defamation, and conspiracy. Vivian released a statement saying I had suffered an emotional breakdown after succession discussions. Colin told employees I had stolen client files. Dad reported me to the securities regulator for unethical solicitation. For 6 weeks, I looked guilty. Clients who remained received calls suggesting I might lose my professional license. A business channel described me as an embittered heir. Then the emergency hearing began. Dad testified that the retirement was compassionate. Andrew was exhausted, he said. "Did he request retirement?" Rachel asked. "No." "Did he sign a retirement agreement?" "No." "Did he approve the announcement?" "No." "Then what made it retirement?" Dad looked toward me. We believed it was best. Rachel displayed the key person clauses. "Were clients notified before the dinner?" "No." "Why not?" "We expected continuity." Meaning, you expected their money to remain after removing the advisor named in their contracts. Dad said nothing. Colin testified next. He denied forging signatures. He described the Stonebridge forms as administrative drafts. The portal logs appeared. His user account had submitted the forms. Vivian's drive had provided the signature images. The compensation schedule showed his $900,000 bonus. Rachel asked, "Did Margaret Sloan authorize the investment?" Colin said, "She discussed income. Did she authorize it?" "No." "Did Andrew?" "He would have. That is not consent." Colin's composure cracked. "You don't understand how advisory firms operate." Margaret spoke from the witness stand. "I understand how my money operates." The room became silent. Vivian testified that edited messages were normal communication summaries. Rachel displayed the full trustee email beside the shortened version. Why remove the sentence, "declining compensation"? To simplify context. It changed the meaning. That was not my intent. Then the fake Samir email appeared. Server logs traced it to her department. A draft message from Vivian to Colin said, "Once Samir thinks Andrew has become hostile, he will accept transition faster." Vivian began crying. I was protecting Harrison's life's work. Samir testified next. "No," he said. "You were treating relationships as inventory." Elena provided the final evidence. North Harbor's concealed conflicts, Stonebridge's unauthorized commitments, Colin's bonus, the altered ethics complaint, the communications logs, and a recording from the family meeting. Dad's voice said, "We'll call it retirement." Clients accept illness and retirement. They argue with termination. Vivian replied, "Make it warm enough that Andrew looks cruel if he objects." Colin said, "Once the announcement is public, the clients will not embarrass Harrison by leaving." They had calculated the client's loyalty. They had simply calculated it toward the wrong person. The court denied the firm's request to prevent clients from leaving. It found no evidence that I had solicited them improperly. The regulator opened a broader investigation into Vail Private Advisory. Colin was barred from supervisory duties and later settled fraud-related charges involving unauthorized submissions and misleading compensation disclosures. He paid a large penalty and left the industry. Vivian was not charged for crying editing family stories or making cruelty sound compassionate. Those things were legal. She resigned after the board discovered the extent of her communications campaign. Dad remained founder but lost executive control. The firm survived under independent management. It became smaller, more honest. Its name stayed on the building, though Dad no longer entered through the private elevator. I did not take the clients who left, not immediately. For 6 months, I worked with their attorneys to transfer records to whichever firms they selected. Some chose banks, some chose family offices. Some managed assets internally. Margaret called me after her transfer completed. "What are you going to do?" "I don't know." That is not true. I'm considering a consulting practice, advising firms, advising families during transitions. She laughed. "You mean doing what you always did without your father taking credit?" That sounds less polite. It is more accurate. I founded Harbor Risk Council with Elena. We did not manage investments. We helped families evaluate advisors' governance structures, conflicts, succession plans, and financial decisions made during grief or pressure. Samir became our first client. Margaret became the second. Not because they followed me from Vail, because 6 months later, after their old contracts had ended, they chose to hire us for different work. Dad visited my new office 1 year after the dinner. It was smaller than Vail's headquarters. No private elevator, no marble lobby. He noticed the retirement watch inside a glass case. Beneath it, I had placed the card from the dinner. "Enjoy the quiet life, Andrew." "You kept it," he said. "Yes." To mock me? No. Then why? Because retirement was the first decision you made about my life that finally made me stop asking for your approval. He sat across from me. The firm lost almost half its assets. I know. People say it was because of Colin. It was because clients stopped believing the firm told the truth. Dad looked toward the window. I thought they trusted the Vail name. They did. Then why did they leave? They trusted what the name used to mean. He looked at me. "And you think that was you?" "No." That answer surprised him. It was Mom. You, me, Elena, every advisor who returned calls during funerals and market crashes. The name was never one person. He looked down. I made it one person when I chose Colin. You made it ownership when it was always service. He nodded slowly. Did you know they would stand? No. Not even Margaret. No. He almost smiled. She always liked you more. She trusted me more. That is worse. For you? Yes. We sat quietly. Then Dad said I should not have called it retirement. No. I thought termination sounded cruel. It was cruel. I thought the room would protect me. The room was full of people who had paid us to tell them uncomfortable truths. He looked at the watch. Do you forgive me? Partly. What remains? The part where you still believe the announcement caused the damage. What caused it? All the years before it. He left without asking me to return. That was progress. Colin emailed me after his settlement. He wrote, "You won because clients were sentimental." I replied, "No, you lost because you mistook trust for an asset owned by the firm." He answered, "Same thing." That was why he never understood. Clients do not belong to advisors. They can leave. Employees do not belong to founders. They can resign. Children do not belong to parents. They can stop performing the version of themselves that makes the family comfortable. My father announced my retirement because he believed the word would make my removal feel peaceful. He believed clients would applaud except Colin and continue sending statements to the same address. Instead, they announced their own retirement from a firm that had confused a relationship with possession. The watch remains in my office. It never keeps perfect time. I do not repair it. It reminds me that the wrong people can announce the end of your career, your relevance, or your place in the family. Their announcement does not make it true. That was the lesson my father learned in an empty ballroom. You can inherit a company's name, but trust retires the moment people realize the name no longer stands for what they were promised.